Well, it's a battle in Ames, Iowa, as the Knights head to number 9 Iowa State. Can the Knights pull off the upset? Gonna be hard. We'll talk about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA, and political props. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, before we get into Iowa State, just wanted to say a big thank you. This weekend was a long weekend. These last 3 weekends have been long for us, but saw we finally hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We've only been doing this 2 years. It's not really a long time. 3 seasons, 2 years. And to see the growth of the channel with everything that we've been doing to try and give you guys more content has been amazing to see for us. We've tried to ingrain ourselves into the UCF community. I've been a part of it my entire life, but to see the response that we've gotten over these first 2 years and the amount of people that have just kind of attached to the podcast has been a huge joy for both me and Nick. So I just want to say thank you so much. It means a lot to us, and let's just keep growing. But Nick, you've been a part of, obviously we've been doing this rodeo together, and it's cool to see. Like, we've definitely seen a shift, and we're going to continue to what we're doing, but it's definitely special to finally hit that.
It absolutely is. All I can say is I hope we let's start the march towards 1,500. Let's start the march towards 2,000. Let's keep this thing growing. We're going to do everything we can to continue to bring you guys the best content possible. And I feel like we've been doing that. I feel like we've been hitting our stride here more recently, especially with the stuff we've been doing pregame and postgame, and then we're going to do the watch along too. The road watch alongs are back, and I'm going to make an appearance for the first time ever on that thing. So we don't have to watch this game. You don't have to watch this game alone. So, it's been a fun ride, and we're far from done. We are far from done.
Yeah, it will be the first time I actually have somebody to talk to on these things. I know the first, or I forgot which one it was, maybe Kansas. I brought a couple people on, some fans, to help it move along. This one, I have no idea how it's going to go. So having you on there, we'll see if Steven can get on. Steven definitely wants to be on to show you guys his newly shaved face. Because we had 1,000 subscribers, he shaved the mustache. I saw it on Monday. He was going to be on the pod today, but it just didn't work out. But we will try to get him on at least on Saturday, so you guys can see the shaved mustache that he happily announced on social media when we.
Yeah, I told my wife about the shaving the head, and it was a no-go. Oh. It was shot down immediately. So.
Yeah, Steven said he felt bad when I started kind of throwing out stuff for you. He felt like he had to step in. Which
I probably am not getting a haircut for a while because, I hate that we had to go through a hurricane to get here, but we got some solid weather coming in.
Yeah.
And so it's time to have my fur coat on top of my head now for the rest of until January or February probably.
Yeah, I'll probably get a haircut here fairly soon. It's getting a little long for my liking, so probably in the next couple weeks I'll be getting a cut. But definitely before we get into this Iowa State preview, make sure you tune in this Saturday. Me, Nick, you'll get us too. We'll see if we can bring on a couple guests, but for 4 hours, late night on a Saturday, you get to see these two dudes potentially just decline in excitement for 4 hours. So if you are interested in that, tune in. We would love to have you. But listen, before we get into Iowa State, this is going to be the Iowa State preview, but
we'll get to that at some point.
I feel like for the next couple months, Nick, it's going to be before we get to the preview, let's talk about the negative.
It's we always got to, no, it's more, we always got to have our weekly come to Jesus meetings here about the UCF program because I think we're all hands on deck on that right now. We'll get to the preview. We'll get to the preview. Well, yeah, Iowa State's really good. We got it.
Well, and I'll say this, this technically is the Iowa State preview. This portion we're about to talk about things that kind of lead up to Iowa State and what we will be seeing in the Iowa State game. But it was a rough game. I didn't obviously you drive back from Tampa during home games, so you're not able to really be on the post-game pods, which is a big disappointment for me because I'm forced to be on a camera by myself and talk for 30 minutes about just, bad football. But I'm going to give you the floor to kind of close the chapter on Cincinnati. It's pretty much the same talk. I think you're the same thing you're going to say every single week, but anything new that you want to add to the Cincinnati game?
I mean, it was just another week of missed opportunities. I mean, I went back and I tried to watch like a condensed version of the game and try to like break down some plays. There's still they were a little bit better at it in this football game, with the RPO and trying to. I mean, some of those throws are there, and Ja'Cory Brown was a little bit better at it, but there were still a handful of plays where I felt like he could have pulled it and gotten some quick throws out for some easy yardage, and they didn't do it. And it ended up they would just hand it off to RJ. He'd get hit right at the line, and they got no yards. Probably about at least 5 or 6 plays that I think I saw from what I was watching where I felt like they had other opportunities. So that's still something I think needs to get cleaned up is, they're running a lot of RPO in this offense. We know that. The strange disappearance of the tight end from this offense. I don't think anybody really has a direct answer. I know Gus, I listened to the press conference, and I mean, the press conferences are getting longer. I feel like the questions are getting more direct.
Hey, I tried my best.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that are being fired Gus's way. Some fearlessness with the questions that I'm hearing, and of course, I mean, Gus is Gus. I mean, we know what he's going to say about most of it. We got to play better. We got to execute better. We got to coach it better. I got full confidence that we're gonna be better. Until we see it, it all just sort of rings hollow, I think, to everybody for a team that has scored 26 points in the last 2 games against 2 defenses who are not exactly great. So, it's more missed opportunities. It's more sloppiness in their play. Penalties, just tackling, it was an issue. Not as much in this game, but it's been an issue for a large part of the season. And now here comes the number 9 team in the nation, or you got to go play the number 9 team in the nation in their house, and we'll get to that later in the pod, but it don't look like a great matchup on paper, I'll tell you that. So, as Gus said, we're turning the page. They're 3-3 at the midway point, and sort of very reminiscent to what we saw last year. Are they staring another 5-game losing streak in the face, or are they going to surprise us here in the next 2 weeks?
And here's, I think, what's different from last year to this year, and why this year just feels a lot worse. It should feel a lot worse because you're at the same point you were last year. But last year there was signs of this team could win some of these games, right? There's even in the Kansas State game, the first game, you felt UCF was in it until the fourth quarter. It's like, okay, make a couple plays here and there with a backup quarterback. You do something. Baylor, right? You think about Baylor. Oklahoma, you're right in it. Which this game does feel very reminiscent to Oklahoma. Now, I think me and you both agree that Iowa State, in our opinion, is a better football team than last year's Oklahoma team. And similar situation with tough place to play, going up to Ames. But I think the negativity right now and the sky is falling mentality among UCF fans is valid because the team just doesn't look good compared to last year where I think the bar was higher, or the bar wasn't as high, but you saw signs of life where it's like this team can win games they have no business winning.
Right.
Because they can move the
ball.
And
they were a few plays away when you look at the Baylor game, you look at the Oklahoma game, you look at the Texas Tech game. Like we've been over it a million times. They were a few plays away from potentially being an 8-win, 9-win football team. Whereas this year's team is so far away, it feels like, from being we were talking at one point hey, this is an important stretch and maybe you have a chance to go to 6-0. I don't know. They seem so far away from that right now.
Yeah. And like we said, as we move into Iowa State and kind of everything around that game, because there's a lot. It's not just the game itself. It's quarterback controversy and everything you don't want in a team. But I think, like we said, glass half full, Sean, coming out. Glass half full is you have a lot of opportunities in the next 6 games. A lot of opportunities. Now, I think for us right now, it's just about can you look better each week. I don't think it's necessarily about do we think UCF is going to win these games? No. But I think with the opportunity you have is can you win some games that you're not supposed to win? And they have every opportunity to do that since I think if me and Nick are looking at it, UCF should be the underdog in every single one of these games moving forward. And they have no business winning any of these games. Maybe Arizona. But even that is a game that I think a lot of people think looks better than it actually is. So, yeah, you have opportunities. Glass half full coming out. But, all right, let's talk Iowa State. Now, like I said, this is going to be semi-Iowa State because let's be real. Iowa State's really good. Just in every facet. I've watched a couple Iowa State games this year. They're a tough beat. Just because they don't really beat themselves. They do everything that UCF wants to do, which is run the football down your throat, and when you think that they're gonna run the football, they throw it deep and they just beat you deep, which UCF has not been good at all year when it comes to the RPO game. You saw Cincinnati beat them a bunch of times with it last week, where there's just a wide open guy coming from the opposite side of the field. So you've seen teams kind of beat UCF. But let's talk about quarterbacks really quick. Gus said in his press conference how Jakari's going to get the first team reps to start the week, and he would not announce if they do a two quarterback system. He would not announce who the starter would be. I've heard from people that they would not be surprised if E.J. Colson is once again the starter this week. Gus made it very clear to say that the reason they stuck with Jakari is because the way that Cincinnati's playing the quarterback run, that he kept him in there. Nick, what do you think happens? I mean, I think the logical human would think Jakari Brown starts since he played basically the entire game last week. But when you hear that people might still think that EJ goes out and gets trotted out against the number 9 team in the country, what do you think about that?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. If you want to throw EJ Colson out there against Cincinnati at home, like I had no problem with that. Okay. And like I said then, it's like if he jumped all these spots on the depth chart, so we think, and had these great weeks of practice, like Gus had said, and felt that he had deserved that opportunity, I'm good with it. And I hate, it's nothing against EJ Colson, because again, I said it after that game, I don't think we got a fair look at him because of 2 drives ending in fumbles by a senior running back who right now adds no value to your program, in my opinion. And, you know, the 3rd drive that he got, he throws 1 pass, and then he's yanked out for Jakari Brown. Jakari Brown does a nice run, goes a nice pass across the middle to Jacoby Jones, and then we're off and running with Jakari Brown. And that was it. Like, I just feel like the way that Jakari played the rest of the game, not perfect. He had some misplays in the passing game. I mean, they don't have a perfect passer on this roster right now. I think we all can see that. But what he did with his legs, I think was big time. It added a new element to this offense. Sort of what JRP was able to do. Now, I think JRP was from what I've seen, I feel like JRP was probably a better passer than any quarterback on the UCF roster. And I mean, I think we probably had some issues with him in the passing game too. But again, we're just comparing it to what we have right now. But the element that he added in the run game, I think was huge for this offense. The last couple of years, we were missing it. Jakari Brown, I think, made up for that in the game against Cincinnati. And unfortunately, it was just the same issues over and over where they can't score in the red zone. They can't really find a way to get the ball to anybody else except Kobe Hudson on offense. And then he had a big miss. Probably the biggest miss he had all day was when Trent Whittemore had a really nice release and got open downfield. And, you just got to loft that over the defender and it should be a walk-in touchdown. And that changes the complexion of that entire game. You might win the game, if he hits that, but he underthrows it a little bit, and that was a missed opportunity. So my point is, like, he did not play a perfect football game. I mean, they scored 13 points, but I thought he did enough to where he has earned the right, in my opinion, to be the starter moving forward. That's nothing against EJ Colson, It's just I thought he really kind of grew into that game and got comfortable. There was some disarray around him in regards to like the offensive line play just not being good enough, the running game not being good enough around him. Like to me, sending out EJ Colson now against this team, which has the number 4 ranked defense in the entire country with veterans all over the field. Why does that sound? How does that sound like a smart decision then to send EJ Colson out there into that? Like, Jakari Brown doesn't have much experience either, but he's got a lot more than EJ Colson. And I just saw him play a majority of a game and play well in parts of it. Like, it's nothing against EJ Colson. It doesn't seem like the right time for him to. I mean, if you want to have some packages for him throughout the game sprinkled in, okay. But to go out and start and stuff like that and try to alternate, completely, I don't like that idea.
Yeah, that's my thing. I think the coaching staff clearly believes that EJ Colson is the best quarterback on the roster. Like I don't care who they start on Saturday. Like they clearly believe that this is the guy they think has the most talent because there's no reason he jumps. I think he jumped 2 guys. I think he jumped Jakari and KJ. I think he was quarterback 3. I know Dylan Risk played over him in the games, but I think there's other factors at play there that made that happen. I think they believe that he's the most complete quarterback. Now, with that being said.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was hearing too a lot this week was the energy and that he brought to the team and like people saying that, Kobe Hudson looked like he was so amped up to play more so than ever with EJ Colson in there. So if it's something like that where like the players are vouching for him, like, okay. It just seems like on the surface, like I just watched Jakari Brown play and he seems like he's the guy.
It's hard to yank a guy that had close to 300 yards of offense for you. Like it's hard to yank a guy for that. Now, and also like you talked about it, like it's not the best position to put a 7. And I know I say 17-year-old a lot, but he's 17. He's the second youngest quarterback to ever start a football game since I think 1970 something. I forgot what that stat was, but he's a young kid. And to throw him in, you said it, to throw him in against Cincinnati at home is a little different than throwing him on the road against the number 9 team in the country, number 4 defense in the country. Just a little different. I do think, I think he will see some playing time. I don't think it's just going to be Jakari 100% or EJ 100%. I think you'll see both quarterbacks. I do think Jakari starts, but if EJ goes and starts, the confidence level for me, not that I don't have confidence in EJ, but it's just like, I don't care how confident the kid is, which we've all heard that he's insanely confident. To throw him in there in that spot, it is a difficult spot to be in, especially only getting 3 series last week. Like, if he's just doing great in practice, not saying he can't do it in the game, he didn't get an opportunity to, but you're asking a little bit much of a young kid to go in there and win you a game that you have no business winning.
Yeah, it might not even matter who they have back there, to be honest with you. Against this team, it might not matter. And again, like UCF wants to run the football, they have not done it effectively. They haven't got enough push up front. We've been over this. It seems like malpractice at the fact that RJ Harvey has been held under 100 yards for 3 straight games on the ground. I mean, even Gus said, like I think at the press conference maybe right after the game, like, yeah, we did not get RJ Harvey enough touches either. Like it seems like malpractice. Like he didn't get enough touches. Like some of the guys who can play on this offense are like a Randy Pittman Jr., for example, are like just complete non-factors right now. And then even guys like I just mentioned, Whittemore, when he makes a really good release off the line and gets wide open and they're underthrowing him. So there's no perfect solutions if you go with EJ Colson or you go with Jakari Brown. I'm just not typically a fan of doing the whole 2 quarterback thing.
No, I'm not either. I said we were making jokes. Everybody makes jokes about Florida all year about going to a 2 quarterback system, and now UCF is in that same boat. I don't like it But at the end of the day, if you're not confident 100% in either or about who's going to give you the best chance to win, then I say, okay, like, then keep doing what you're doing.
If the expectations have changed and the goals, like I mean, Gus said, like we have to adjust our goals, and we don't know what those goals are. But if the goal is we want to see what we have in the guy that we think is going to be the long-term answer at our quarterback position, and then we want to get him reps. And yes, it's a tough environment. Yes, it's one of the best teams in the nation. But listen, he's got to get out there eventually. Like, I could see it from that perspective if that's what they're looking at, and they're not entirely sold on Ja'Carri Brown being that guy.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I think anything was better than what you were getting. So let's see what happens. You mentioned the red zone offense. I asked Gus about it because we all see it. The red zone, when they get into the red zone, for some reason they don't know what to do. And I asked if it was play calling or if it was just execution. Because there are some times where, you're shaking your head like, why are we calling 3 straight passes on the 7-yard line? Why aren't we running the ball with RJ more than once? And Gus, credit to Gus, I think he gave a very good answer. He said, I think it's a little bit of both. So it's play calling and it's execution. So he said that they are working on it on red zone offense and third down defense this week. Those are the basically only 2 things they're working on.
I'm glad to know they're working on those 2 things. I'm glad to know.
After Game 6, which
I'm glad to know, because the red zone offense, for those who want the fact check here, they're 107th in red zone offense in the country right now. They're 11 for 26 to be exact.
It's bad. All right, let's talk about Iowa State. And folks, I'm not gonna lie. Not much nitpick here. And when I say not much, I mean literally like nothing. This is a really good football team. If I had to guess, and I'm not going to say me and Nick are the smartest people when it comes to certain football teams, but we said coming in to this season, we both had this down as a loss. I'll stay till the end because who knows, we might be picking UCF. But this is a really good Iowa State team. Matt Campbell, he was really hot for the first couple of years of his tenure. Then he kind of took a dip for a couple of years, and everybody kind of was thinking he was going to get fired. Now he's right back up there to being everybody's in love with Coach Campbell. Nick, what have you seen from this team as a whole? Is it they finally got a quarterback in Rocco Beck that kind of turned the team around? Is it just the defense getting older and playing younger guys? Like, what is it about this Iowa State team that's now all of a sudden really starting to click?
Yeah, I just think they got a veteran roster all over the place. You look at offensively, Rocco Beck in his second year as a full-time starter, he's just so efficient with the football, completing 70 or 67% of his passes. They do a really good job of running the football as well. And it's a 3-headed monster, and really it's almost like game to game from what I've seen of which one you're going to get between Jalen Jackson, Carson Hansen, and Abu Sama. It seems to be like every game it's one of those guys. This past week against West Virginia, and it ended up being Carson Hansen, who goes for 96 yards and 3 scores. And he was the hot hand, and they rode that. So it seems like one of those systems where like I said, they ride the hot hand and they go from there. And then at the receiver position, it's really 2 guys who make up almost the entirety of the production. And let me tell you, this is probably the best 1-2 punch in the entire conference right here. We talked about that a lot in the offseason. Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins, 2 guys who probably have NFL futures, if we're being honest. Jalen Knoll is at 29 receptions for 528 yards. Jaden Higgins, 39 receptions for 505 yards. And then the next highest pass catcher is the tight end, Benjamin Brahmer, with 8 catches for 160 yards. So it is very much so a 2-man show in the passing game, but nobody's been able to stop it yet, Sean. Nobody's been able to stop it yet. So that's one of those matchups I'm curious to see about, because we have sort of said that the UCF defense is starting to come around right now. Thought Ted Roof called a fantastic game against Cincinnati, gave this offense and this team every opportunity to win that football game. They did not pull their weight around them, but you saw some signs of life and some signs of growth here. But this is obviously going to be the toughest test that they've had probably since, other than the Colorado game, I'd probably say. When you look at all the guys they can throw out there, Rocco Beck, they do a good job of keeping him upright as well. Only been sacked 4 times all year. So it's just a very veteran football team. Certainly, they're well coached. You mentioned Matt Campbell. He's put a lot of dudes in the NFL, especially on offense. When you look at Brock Purdy, when you look at Breece Hall, I think you even go back to Hakeem Butler, got drafted pretty high a few years ago. Didn't pan out in the NFL necessarily, but so they produce NFL talent. They have NFL talent on this offense. So it's going to be a big challenge for them, and especially the fact that they're at home, and we know that that's going to be a hostile environment.
Yeah, and if you just look at their home games, like I think sometimes UCF fans, or not just UCF fans, but college football fans will look at a top team and say, well, they only beat Houston 20-0. Well, they were still on the road. They were still on the road. And you look at the games where they have struggled, and it's been on the road. And by struggle, they're still beating teams by, 1-2 touchdowns. So when they're at home, they are very dangerous. You talked about Rocco Beck. I think what I really like about what they're doing this year, and you mentioned it, this is like the UCF offense, but when it actually is working. And what's also different about this team is they just have a really elite defense. But we're going to stick to the offense. They're not putting it in Rocco Beck's hands and trying to say, hey, go win this game for us. They are doing a very conservative approach. And when I say conservative, that is a positive. They are not trying to do too much. I think if you can look up time of possession for me, because I think they're one of the best teams in the country when it comes to just time of possession. They do not really go quick. They are very methodical in the way that they run the football. You mentioned all 3 guys that really just have taken over. We talk about UCF's running back room, which hasn't really done much. You got 3 guys over 50 carries. So it's like they like to give the ball to a bunch of different guys. They stick to their running game. And Beck's he's thrown it 158 times. Now, he hasn't been sacked too much. He's only been sacked 4 times, given up 3 interceptions. So UCF found something last week in terms of turning over the football. But this offense does look a lot like how a UCF offense that we remember used to run, which is if you stop the run, you have a chance. And UCF has been able to do that. So does it give you any confidence, Nick, from especially last week against a Cincinnati team that usually does run the ball very good? Especially, they didn't do a great job against Florida, but clearly I think they figured something out. Do you have any confidence in this UCF defense to stop the Iowa State rushing attack?
Yeah, I do think they have a fairly good shot at being able to limit the run. UCF does come into this game 12th in the nation in stopping the run, giving up 91 yards per game. We know that was a big issue against Colorado, but really outside of that, I think they've done a pretty solid job in doing that. So I think I'd rather take my chances there than their ability to stop the pass in this game, because I think Knoll and Higgins are probably going to, I know UCF again has shown some bright spots lately a little bit in their secondary, but we know it's very much a bend, not break sort of system. Obviously Iowa State sees it that UCF has done a pretty good job at stopping the run. So I do think it's possible for them to at least limit them there.
Yeah. And listen, I'm all for, we've had a lot of bend, don't break defenses in UCF's tenure over the last 10 years, right? That's kind of been the UCF staple, has been bend, don't break. As long as you're not giving up touchdowns in the red zone, you give yourself a chance to win. So right. If you stop the run and you're forcing Rocco Beck to throw a bunch in this game, I think you give yourself an opportunity. Yeah. But with two elite receivers, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and to the point about red zone, we talked a lot about like UCF red zone issues on offense. Iowa State's 70th in the country for what it's worth. So, they're just, what is that, probably below average.
Yeah.
So they seem to have had some issues there this year as well. So, but we know that that's going to be, UCF sort of thing is they're probably going to play a lot of zone, and it's going to be very much a bend, not break, and making those stops in the red zone. And sort of like they did against Cincinnati. They made stops when they absolutely had to have them. They got some turnovers. Both turnovers, I believe, both came in the red area. And then they made that big stop after Johnny Richardson fumbled on the second offensive drive. And that's really, I think, what kept UCF in that football game. So if you're going to have any chance at winning, you have to keep them out of the end zone when they get down there in the red area, and maybe you somehow force a turnover again, because turnovers were few and far between before this last game.
For sure. And here's the negative. Glass half empty, Sean comes out. The negative part is Brennan Sorsby of Cincinnati said that they showed a lot of stuff that was not on film. And I think we saw it up in the press box. They started taking Braden Marshall out and putting X-Ray Alexander in as kind of just an extra linebacker type in the game. I think if you're Iowa State, you're just going to watch the film and say, okay, this is what they're doing. And if I was running the offense, and again, I'm not a football guy, when I say I'm not a football guy, I mean I'm not the quarterback of a Power 4 team. But if I see that 24 is coming into the game for 4, they're expecting a run. They're expecting you to run the football. So all I would do is check out of it to a pass. So I think as soon as teams put on the film and see they kind of switched up the defense a little bit on Cincinnati's week, you're not really catching anybody off guard. Cincinnati didn't make changes to when we would do that. So it's like, that's a positive. But I think Iowa State is not Cincinnati, and Iowa State is going to see that on film this week and be able to, exploit it.
Yeah, and it is also too worth telling, to the point of how efficient they've been in the passing game. Like, very explosive too. Found this nugget when I was doing some research for this game. 20% of their completions have gone for 20 plus yards this season, which is 16th nationally in the country. So again, in terms of matchup with UCF sort of doing the whole bend not break thing, Iowa State clearly loves to get the ball vertical. So can you take them out of their bread and butter and force them to try to run the ball? Because they have been, as much as I know they can run the ball, it's in there. Especially against Baylor, I think they ran for like 260 yards or something, which I believe is a season high for them. And then obviously last week I had mentioned that Carson Hansen had a really efficient day on the ground against West Virginia. Sometimes it can be a little inconsistent for them, and they haven't exactly been great at pushing the chains on first downs and second and longs, third and shorts. Like, they have some issues there in those sort of situations. So it's just a big emphasis if you can try to take them out of their comfort zone in the passing game.
And I do think a lot of those deep passes, not that they're all from this, but that's where the RPO game helps you. If you're running the ball and these opposing defenses try and stop the run as much as seemingly possible, it's opening up the deep pass game. It's opening up. And that's where I think if you're UCF, you have to stay on your assignment constantly, because the minute you start to play the run a little bit too much is when a team like Iowa State will beat you over the top. So if you're staying in your assignment and making sure you know who you have in that given moment, I think UCF can make some noise. I'm not saying they're going to stop Iowa State at all, but I think they can get a couple stops that can give the offense the ball maybe a little bit more than we are all thinking. Let's quickly talk about this Iowa State defense, Nick. The Iowa State defense, you mentioned it, they rank 4th. I think this is what's going to make, if you're talking about an Iowa State Big 12 title winner, an Iowa State college football playoff contender, it's can this defense keep it up? If you look at their games and the games that they've been close, I mean, it's Iowa, but they really had a low-scoring games against Iowa, held them to 19, held Arkansas State to 7, North Dakota to 3. They didn't allow any points against Houston. The last 2 weeks have kind of been the weeks where they've given up a little bit more points than normal, but that's saying something. Like, they only gave up 21 to Baylor and 16 to West Virginia. So if you're looking at it from can UCF, this offense, score the ball on Iowa State's defense, I think me and Nick will look at it and laugh, because if you're not going to be able to score on the Cincinnati defense, which the one thing I will say, former Iowa State defensive coordinator is now at Cincinnati, so there are similarities in the defense and how it is run, so you've already kind of got an early look. But there's nothing on this offense that makes you think, oh yeah, they're going to go into Iowa State and put up 30 points. I mean, they can't even get over 13. So,
Let me tell you where this game. Let me tell you where this actually to me is the biggest actually point that I'm going to make in this game, and the biggest number I'm going to pull out here for you. UCF over the last 4 weeks, Sean, has gotten off to some very slow starts. Yes, very slow starts. And Gus Malzahn has said, we got to find a way to start faster. Let me tell you right now, you had better start fast against Iowa State, because when it turns over to the third quarter, you are basically done for the day. Because let me tell you this, the Iowa State defense, or the Iowa State team rather, has outscored their opponents 103 and 20-26 in the second half this year. That means, Sean, that their defense is giving up an average of 4.3 points per game in the final 30 minutes of play. So let me tell you this. There is no we're going to struggle in the first half and we're going to somehow pull a TCU out of the hat, or we're going to grow into the no. You have to come out and have your best in those first 2 quarters, because from what we've seen from Iowa State in the first 6 games of this season, you will not score on them in the second half. They will lock that stuff. They will lock you down. So that's actually, I think, the most telling thing that I think I saw maybe in the research is how great they have been in the second half, and the fact that UCF has been a slow starting team for the last 4 weeks. It's just not a great recipe.
Yeah. West Virginia scored 6 points in the second half last week. Baylor was kind of the anomaly. Never mind. I was looking at Iowa State. No, Baylor scored 7. So, yeah, here's, I think, the thing with we're talking about a chance to win the game. And I get we just talked about the Iowa State offense, and we're talking about the defense now. But if UCF has any chance of winning this game, like West Virginia kind of showed something, where in the first quarter, they allowed 0 points. It was really the second and fourth quarter where Iowa State put up 2 touchdowns in both those quarters, and that's how you ultimately lose the game. You allowed 2 touchdowns in both the second and fourth quarters, but they allowed no points in the first and third. UCF has tried to get off to a fast start. There's a reason they keep saying we want the ball to start the game. They don't want to get behind. They don't feel that they can win a game if they are coming from behind.
You can't do it here, I'll tell you that.
You need to get the ball, and you need to go down and score a touchdown to have any hope. If you get down 7-0, this game's over. And I don't want to be negative Nancy here. You go down 7-0, the game's already over. Because points against this team are going to be scarce. The only chance you have at winning this game is if it is a 13-10 type of game. You allow 10 points, you get up a couple extra field goals, and that's the game. I don't think this is not the UCF offense that we know and love. This is a shell of itself in terms of an offense where you'd be lucky to get past 20. So
this is, let's just say this, like this is not the number. I don't care this is the one numbers I don't care about. They are not the number 1 offense in the Big 12. They can sit there atop the rankings all they want, and yards. They had 401 yards last week. Cool. They had 13 points. They're not this offense. I just,
an offense matters if you score points.
Correct. It's just such, like, I'm trying to find, I know we're trying to find ways and say things like, oh, what can UCF do to try to win the football game? It's just so lopsided from a matchup standpoint. You have to be perfect. You have to be perfect. And I just don't think they have that in them. I just keep going down my list of notes here and seeing if I've missed any numbers. And I did miss one. Iowa State's allowed 7 touchdowns this year, Sean. 7. They have 10 interceptions on this season. They have more interceptions than touchdowns they've allowed. And I'm trying to do quick math here. And how many touchdowns has UCF scored in the last 3 weeks?
I was literally just doing that math in my head. I'm like, how many times have UCF scored a touchdown?
They scored 3 touchdowns against Colorado.
1 last week.
They scored 1 against last week and 1 against Florida. They have scored 5 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Iowa State has allowed 7 all year. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Listen, I didn't say it was going to be easy. What was good about the Oklahoma State game last year, the Oklahoma State game and Oklahoma game, where you felt like those were games that UCF had no shot winning. They had no chance, none at all. This team was going to get blown out. and they went in, they played almost a perfect game against Oklahoma, almost, and then a perfect game against Oklahoma State. Like, you can't sit and watch the Oklahoma State game and say that wasn't a perfect game. That's probably the most perfect game of UCF football in the last 4 years in Gus Malzahn's tenure. We don't know what team you're going to get. I think we do know because they've kind of showed us the team that they are the last 3 weeks. And last year, John Rice Plumlee was hurt, and you were dealing with a backup quarterback. And then when John Rice came in against Oklahoma, you're like, okay, this is more the team that we thought we were getting. This year is different. This year, you know the team you're getting. This isn't Oklahoma. This is a much more difficult team, much more physical team than Oklahoma was. Now, you can make the argument, is it harder to play at Oklahoma than Ames? Maybe. Ames is a tough place to play. Not a lot of people want to go into Iowa State and play them at home. So I think for UCF, you just have a lot going against you. And I think we can sit here and there's always going to be that one game, Nick, that Gus Malzahn pulls out and you win and you say, how? And I think a lot of fans are holding on hope for that. Like, oh, that's obviously going to happen again. But this team is bad. And you can hope and pray that happens. But who knows? Let's get into predictions. I don't know if that happens this week. I'll go first. The BetOnline spread right now is Iowa State is favored by 13.5. 13.5. This is Kansas 2.0. Just there's no way we score 20 points. I think it's a blowout. I think UCF puts up 10 points. So I think it's going to be worse than what we got last week and in the Florida week. I think anything more than 10 points would be, you'll get a clap from me, to be honest, at this point. I'm going to say Iowa State 35, UCF 10.
Oh, okay.
That just came off the cuff. I just threw out a score there.
I don't know if it's going to be that lopsided. Like, listen, I think the UCF defense has given me a little bit more confidence of late.
Have they proven on the road that they can play that defense that we saw last week?
No.
And for all you in the comment section, I don't count Florida. Second half. I don't count it.
Hey, I mean,
I don't count it.
You pitched your shutout. Yeah, it just, to me, the problem is that we've sort of 6 games in learned that in a weird way, the defense is the unit that has the momentum right now, and that's just not what we were thinking coming into the season. I don't think the defense to me is showing signs of life, but they're not good enough still to go out and steal you a game, if that makes sense. I don't think they're there yet. I don't think this is the right opponent for that. I don't think it's the right place for that. So I think they'll do their damnedest. They'll try to bend, not break. I think they can have some success potentially stopping the run. I know last week they had some more success getting to the quarterback, but I question if that's going to continue this week. I want to see some more Isaiah Nixon, if I'm going to be honest with you. But I have those question marks. I'm going to go a more conservative score here, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to go Iowa State 28, and I'm going to go UCF 13. I think they score 13 points for the 3rd consecutive week, Sean.
I'm going to switch mine. I'm going to say 31-10.
35-10 just seems so violent.
This is a violent team they're playing.
It seems so violent, but I could see it. Don't get me wrong, but
night game. I feel like why are we getting all these night games? Night game and Ames, Iowa. You don't want to go play in that. You don't want to play in that.
I just feel like we've picked a lot of lopsided scores, like crazy shootouts and stuff, because I thought we were expecting that the last 2 weeks, and we didn't get that. So I'm going to go more conservative now, and so I'm going to stick 28-13. I again, until proven otherwise, until this offense makes me believe and they can fix all these issues, and who knows, maybe it comes together on one Saturday night in Ames. I don't know, but 28-13.
With this team, Nick, anything is possible. And by anything, I mean something as crazy as something like you just said might actually happen.
And if they by some miracle they pull off a win in this game, then I legitimately am just going to throw out my sheets and my notes, and I have nothing to. I won't even really know how to evaluate them moving forward. But but I don't think it's going to happen. But we'll see.
So let's just say this, okay? Let's make this pact right now because we always have that one game. Like last year was Oklahoma State where they went and just like killed them. We will come out. If they somehow win this game, we need to remember the last 3 weeks before it. We can't forget that.
Correct.
Let's come into it, say, okay, congrats. We still stink. Somehow you beat Iowa State, but we're not good. Like Iowa State, with the Big 12, Iowa State is just, there's going to be a week, right? We were talking about that. There's going to be a week where they just lose a game that they're not supposed to lose. That's the Big 12.
It's the thing with Iowa State. I mean, this is uncharted territory for them as a program. I think this is the first time they've been 6-0 in like 83 years or something crazy like that. But given the state of the Big 12 right now, with how chaotic it's been, and you have a lot of teams like Oklahoma State's basically taking themselves out of it, Utah's taking themselves out of it. It's like it really looks like it's 3 teams right now: Iowa State, BYU, and Kansas State. So this is not a game that Iowa State can afford to just drop. That they absolutely should win. So I like to think they're going to be dialed in and they're going to try to take care of business.
Enough said. Guys, what do you think? It's not a game that UCF needs right now, but the toss-up game was last week.
Can we get Houston back on the schedule, please?
Yeah, that really makes me upset. We don't get to play Houston this year. That really makes me upset. I mean, we don't have any toss-ups this year. We all thought there was going to be some toss-ups this year. Now we're looking at it like UCF has one of the toughest schedules in the country when you take a look at it. But drop in the comments. Let us know what you think. Nick, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No. First of all, safe travels to the UCF fans I'm sure there are going to be some UCF fans who make it in Ames this week. So safe travels to all. Have a good time. I can't guarantee that the game's going to be great for UCF, but again, if you're one of those people that likes to travel to all the stadiums, I have to think that going to Ames, Iowa, and seeing this team up close is probably a better experience than traveling to go play East Carolina or something like that. So, still new right now. The novelty is still new, seeing these new stadiums. So enjoy your time for those who are gone. But for the rest of us, we'll be watching on Fox, right?
I think it's FS1.
FS1. Thank goodness. Please don't put this team on Fox.
Yeah, we can't be on national TV the way we've been playing. Let me just double check. I think it is on FS1 though. Yep, FS1.
Oh, cool.
FS1.
We can hide. We can hide on channel 112. Cool.
And if you don't go to the game and you want to, be somewhere where you can say your pain through comments, then come join us.
And if you want to hear Sean's live it's more so Sean's live reactions than my live reactions to what he's watching, because I'm telling you, in the press box, you're a chirper.
Stop.
You're a chirper.
I'm a chirper. I am a chirper in the press box. I'm not loud like I am on a live watch along. But here's the thing. It's kind of like when you watch a team that you just know what's going to happen. I think watching the TCU game, I was just a little bit the amped upness was there.
Yeah. To be fair, last week at one point I turned to you and I said, I told you, I was like, it was the third quarter maybe. I was like, Sean, I'm really bored right now. I was a little bit bored watching the UCF offense go.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yep. I don't blame you. But if you would like to join us, subscribe. We will be going live 10 minutes before the game actually starts. It's going to be a late night. Definitely a late night for us here at Charge On, but we would love to have you if you are available. All right, buddy. That's going to do it for this episode of Charge On. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Let's see. Let's see if the boys can go in and pull the upset off. Regardless, we will be here for you for your pregame and postgame, all that good stuff. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you after the game.